Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Tonight, I have something extra, extra special for you. Tonight, our guest is the great Mark Scotch, the Jim, trail cyclist, the indirect slash voucher altruistic kidney donor and kidney advocate, raising awareness of kidney disease and the need for kidney donors all over the world. Mark is a 67-year-old kidney donor who's about to hit the Oregon Trail again for the fifth time, starting on Tuesday, March 9th, World Kidney Day in Lubbock, Texas, and traveling 1,500 miles to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, completing his journey on or about April 11th. To follow Mark on his journey and learn more about the Oregon Trail, please check out his website at www.markscotch.com. That's the Oregon Trail website, or he's also got a Facebook called the Oregon Trail on Facebook. If you want to drill down a little bit more on Mark, or you want to follow his path, check out the comments in the broadcast, the original broadcast that's pinned to the top of my Facebook page. All kinds of interesting things there about Mark's past journeys and what he's been up to, and you can follow him on his ride. Mark does this to honor his indirect recipient, Hugh Smith, his wife Lynn, who recently became, on January 10th, 2023, an NKR National Kidney Registry voucher donor herself for an infant named Cooper. More on that later in the broadcast. But more importantly, to raise awareness for kidney donation and the need for more kidney donors. Mark's journey with kidney disease began in early 2020 when he met Hugh Smith, a former professional jockey. During his days as a jockey, Hugh suffered numerous injuries and took an awful lot of ibuprofen to relieve his pain. As a result, Hugh's kidneys failed in 2019, putting him on dialysis and a waiting list with approximately 100,000 other people on it. And that's a long wait when they're only turning over 20,000 transplants or so a year. The day they met, the men were strangers, but they hit it off. And Mark knew right away that he wanted to donate to Hugh. Mark was not a direct match for Hugh, but through the National Kidney Registry voucher program, he donated to a matching recipient on Hugh's behalf, moving Hugh up to the top of the list. The next kidney that came up, and there are 4 people involved in this, I learned this week, 4 people. The next donor that matched Hugh that came up in 2021, Hugh then received his life-saving kidney transplant. As a result of Mark's efforts, he's been rewarded, and in particular, the 2021 USA Today's Humankind Triumph of the Year Award, which is a big deal, by the way. Mark has said, quote, "The Oregon Trail is all about generating awareness of the need for kidney donors, especially living kidney donors, but also about showing people that even with one kidney, you can still lead a life full of activities, even if those activities are sustained and vigorous." Please give a warm welcome to our friend, Mark Scotch. Mark, how you doing tonight?
I'm great, Jim. How are you doing?
Doing well, my friend, doing well. Tell us, did I get everything correctly in the introduction? I want to make sure I got the facts straight.
Well, yes, as a matter of fact, I guess we could end it right now. You pretty much covered it all. That's pretty good.
Oh, no. You got a lot to say. I want to give you an opportunity. So please tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, where you grew up, your education, and your employment experience.
Well, I grew up in central Wisconsin, but I've lived in a number of places. But my wife and I were high school sweethearts, and we got married out of high school, and we started a family. We lived in the state of Oregon for 9 years right out of high school, and we moved back to the Midwest. So we have 3 boys. They're all out on their own. we have 3 grandkids, and actually one of them is going to be riding with me on the next ride for a week. So he's in 8th grade. He's going to take his spring break, meet us in Dallas, and ride for a few days with me. So yeah, we just got back from Utah. Our middle son is in the Air Force there, and he's got a 7-year-old named Mason, and we spent some time with him last week. So yeah, my wife was a HR manager, and I went to tech school about 10 years after high school, actually. Out of high school, I had no desire to go to college. I was one of those guys that just wanted to get on with life and wanted to do something right away. But in my late 20s, I realized I had to develop some kind of a marketable skill. So I went to tech school and learned about robotics. That got me in the paper industry in central Wisconsin in the Midwest. Went to paper mills and was installed and serviced robotic test equipment in paper mills. And then I got into sales because I guess when I get on a topic that I really believe in, I get real passionate, and really that's what sales is. And I worked remotely for 25 years. I worked for 2 companies, one out of Finland and one out of Sweden. So I was doing the whole work out of the home thing for most of my career. And I traveled a lot for work. I took my bicycle, my cross-country skis, my roller skis, my canoe and kayak with me wherever I went in the Midwest. And when I wasn't doing my job, I was trying to stay active. And that's about it for my career and my background.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about when your journey with kidney disease began. My notes tell me that back in early 2020, you met a man, Hugh Smith, a former jockey. Where did you guys meet, and why did you hit it off so well with this stranger?
Well, my wife and I had recently retired. We had bought a travel trailer, and we were heading to Texas for the winter. We started to escape Wisconsin in the winter, and we were on our way to Texas, and we stopped in this little town called Natchitoches, Louisiana, on the way to Texas one evening, and we pulled in there. And I just was at the bar having a beer, and there's a guy sitting next to me. We just started talking like you normally do. And he was just a real outgoing guy. And I guess we both aren't afraid to speak to strangers. And we hit it off with sports. He was an LSU fan, Packers, football from Wisconsin, the Badgers in Wisconsin. And then we started talking politics a little bit, which back in the day when we were younger, that was a really common thing. People would talk about politics. It didn't really matter if you agreed with anybody. You entertained ideas from other people. So nowadays, people don't really do that too much. But Hugh and I got to talking about sports and politics and just a normal conversation. And Lynn came in from our travel trailer we were half hour into the conversation. Hugh met Lynn. We just were sitting around there for a little while. And then Hugh said he had to go home. And I was kind of giving him a hard time about leaving. It was kind of early in the evening yet. I thought, come on, Hugh, I'll buy you another one if you want to hang around. And he said no, he had to get going. And he was kind of evasive about it, didn't really say too much. And I just met the guy, so I didn't want to give him too hard a time. But so we were saying goodbye, and I said, you sure? He goes, yeah. I said, I have to go home and go on dialysis. I go, what? He said, yeah. I said, every night I go home and hook up about 8 o'clock, and I'm on dialysis for 10 hours every night. Said my kidneys failed, and I'm basically looking for a kidney. And I said, heck, I'll give you one of mine. And that's exactly how the conversation went. And I could say it so confidently because I knew my sister-in-law had donated 12 years previous to that. And I'm kind of embarrassed to say I never asked her one question about her donation. Never was curious about it. Never was interested in talking about it. I had no curiosity about it. But the only thing I knew is that she donated a kidney. And for all intents and purposes, she was doing fine. So I instantly put all that together in my head, and I told Hugh, yeah, I can do the same thing my sister-in-law did. I can give you a kidney. I had no idea that there was a need for kidney donors. I thought everybody that needed a kidney just got one somehow. I've always been a deceased donor on my driver's license ever since I was a kid. And I just thought mistakenly that everybody that needed a kidney got one through that means. So to meet somebody that actually needed a kidney, I was like, this is cool. I'll help you out. I didn't realize that 13 people were dying every day waiting for a transplant. I had no idea about that. And we'll talk about that more later, but it was that simple. And the rest is history, I guess.
Okay. I understand that Hugh had suffered a lot of injuries while being a jockey, and he was taking large amounts of ibuprofen for an extended period of time. And this in turn led to his severely damaged kidneys and renal failure in 2019 and subsequently to dialysis. Is that correct?
Yeah, what I learned from Hugh, being a professional jockey, we watch horse racing on TV or whatever. When they race, they're racing 2, 3, 4 days in a row. They're racing 3, 4, 5 races a day. I mean, they're really putting it out there for a short period of time. And I'm just assuming, I didn't really talk to Hugh about it in detail, but I'm assuming they don't want to eat a heck of a lot because they want to stay light for the horse. He was a smaller guy. And so back in the day, he was taking ibuprofen. He said they all did, and probably on an empty stomach, which is probably the worst thing you can do. So it just started to build up in him after a while. And if I got the story right, he just went in he might have been experiencing some high blood pressure at the time. And that's when they found out that his kidneys were failing.
Okay. Talk to us about where Hugh was listed and what the testing process was like for you guys. But what happened there?
Well, the night I met Hugh, I said, yeah, I want to learn about how to become a donor. And so he whipped out his a little business card from his coordinator, which was great. I mean, that's what everybody should have, right? At their fingertips. So he gave me the business card of his coordinator, and he was registered at a small hospital in Shreveport. And I say small because I assume it was small. I never went there. But I called his coordinator up the next day or the day after, and I said, what's the process? And she said, well, you got to come in and get tested. And I think I was already back in Wisconsin already. It was probably April of 2020. I think I talked to her initially, but then I went back when we got done with our winter trip. And she said, yeah, you got to come down and get tested, blood tested, urine test, and get evaluated. And I go, oh, wow. I live in Wisconsin. She goes, yeah, I know. I said, well, is there anything I can do up here? She said, well, maybe we can work out a blood test, but we like to do everything, ourselves. And I didn't understand the process. I was just going by what she said. And I thought to myself, wow, I'm glad I'm retired. I'm going to be making a lot of trips down to Shreveport, it sounds like. And she told me, I had to come down for pre-op and then surgery, expect to hang around a while after the surgery. Wow. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, this is a lot more involved than I thought. But I had made the commitment to Hugh, and I was retired. There really was no reason not to. But I like to ride bike. So anytime I am doing something like this, I say, okay, how can I fit a bike ride into it? So at the same time I was learning all this about going to Shreveport numerous of times, I decided to start putting a bicycle ride together, and I would do like maybe 2-3 day trips on every trip down. And I would eventually ride the whole Mississippi River on my bike. So I was putting the ride together. And then at some point in time, I read on the internet that 13 people die every day waiting for a kidney transplant. And it's like, holy cow, how come I didn't know this? I called my wife over, Lynn. I said, hey, Lynn, did you know this? She says, no. I said, my gosh, this is amazing. There's got to be, I've, between all my canoeing and cross-country skiing and bike riding, I'd never met anybody that had donated a kidney that I knew of. But I instantly thought, man, I've got to know hundreds of people that are in perfect health, that don't know what I just learned. Maybe I can share some of that message. So I instantly decided to turn these little bike rides into an awareness ride. I had never done something like this before. I had no idea what I was doing. I just thought, well, if I'm going to be riding the bike and I know that this many people are dying every day, maybe we can help educate some people. And I didn't know how to do that, but I sent an email to the National Kidney Registry. because I was seen to be going to their website for a lot of information on how to become a donor. And it just seemed like that site was, for me, the nuts and bolts site. And I sent them an email it says contact me. I sent them an email saying, hey, I'm interested in being a kidney donor, and I want to put together this bike ride as well. Would you be willing to help me put this together? And I was thinking more like media, like how can I get media? Maybe they knew how to get media. Well, it wasn't very long, and I get this phone call from this guy named Ned Brooks. And Ned Brooks at the time started Donor to Donor. Now it's called National Kidney Donation Organization. Well, NKR had given Ned my information. Ned called me up, and what NKDO does is they mentor potential donors. They help people through the donation process. So it was a natural thing for Ned to call me and say, hey, what are you doing? So I told Ned, and he said, well, you don't have to go down to Shreveport. I go, well, really? I said, I'm kind of wondering, because I realized I'd be driving right through Madison, Wisconsin every time I went to Shreveport. And I had done enough research to realize that Madison was one of the top-notch transplant facilities in the nation. And Shreveport really wasn't on the chart, so to speak. And I thought to myself, I wasn't so concerned about the actual donation. What started to bother me was, what if there's complications? I could easily end up down in Shreveport for a very long time. So fast forward, Ned told me about the voucher program through NKR. It's like, the more he talked about that, the more I was like, oh my gosh, this is like unbelievable. This is a game changer. And the only thing I had to do was call Hugh, because I found out that Shreveport was not one of the network hospitals within NKR, but Jackson, Mississippi was. So I called Hugh and I said, Hugh, would you be willing to get registered at Jackson, Mississippi? He said, hell, I'll come to Madison if I have to. I go, no, you don't have to do that. You can just get registered at Jackson, Mississippi, because they're part of the NKR pool. I like to use the word pool, because what happened was that I did everything in Madison. I got evaluated. My surgery was in Madison. My kidney went in the pool. And at the time I donated, the best match for my kidney, which is huge. You know about this, Jim. The best match for my kidney was in New York. So my kidney went to New York, somewhere in New York State, and they gave me this voucher, and I gave it to Hugh. And that gave him priority on the NKR wait list. As Hugh was ready for his surgery, they found him a kidney, and he came from Southern California. So if you look at the map, Wisconsin, Louisiana, New York, California, I thought to myself, wow, I wonder if I can ride bike to all these points back and forth. It looks like we're losing. Yeah.
Let me make sure I understand this. Evidently, you were not a direct match for Hugh, correct? You were not the same blood type as him, or for some reason you weren't a direct match.
You broke up a little bit. Can you repeat that?
Okay. You were not a direct match for Hugh? Can you hear me, Mark? Oh boy. Can you hear me, Mark? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, but you're breaking up. I don't know if it's my signal. I'm in a hotel room, so.
Okay. Let me try again. You were not a direct match for Hugh, correct? Okay.
Jim?
Let me log off and log back on again, see if that helps. Hang on. Mark, are you there?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can see you and hear you.
Okay. You were not a direct match for Hugh, is that correct?
You know, we never even tried. Once I understood about the voucher program, there was no point in trying to be a match. You know, and if I would have, Hugh and I talked about trying to see if I was a match, but it would have slowed down the process. So I just said, no, Hugh, let's just use the voucher the way it's designed. Hugh did find out some information. They might have ran something. He heard at one point in time we were a 30% match, but it really didn't matter.
Okay. So on the 20th in September of 2020, you donated a kidney to a guy from New York, correct?
It went to New York, yep.
Okay. And in 2022, someone donated a kidney to Hugh in Jacksonville, Mississippi, because of your donation in his name.
Well, actually, Hugh was registered at Jackson, Mississippi, and on February 18th of 2021, he got a kidney.
Okay, beautiful. All right. Tell us about the benefits of the voucher system through the National Kidney Registry.
Well, it's kind of a hybrid paired exchange. Basically, instead of having like 4 people that can do the paired exchange, the voucher allows the donor just to donate. There's no other people involved. So the benefit is really huge for the donor in that the donor can actually pick a date and time that he wants to or she wants to donate. There's nobody else involved. So there's no waiting. It's very simple. And for Hugh, we were separated by time and distance. So it didn't matter that Hugh was in Louisiana and I was in Wisconsin. We could each do our own thing locally. I could donate on my own schedule, and Hugh could receive on his own schedule. So there was no delays. There was no 4 people have to be healthy all at the same time. What if one gets then it's called off, you know? So it makes it so much easier for the donor. And what I've learned is that more people will be able to donate if there's less barriers. So the easier we can make it on the donor, the better it is. The donor is kind of the key to this whole thing, right? So
yeah,
making it easier for the donor is huge. And the voucher program, I don't know of anything that makes it easier to donate than the voucher program.
Quicker too.
It's quicker, and there's no compromise in the match. When they were looking for a Hugh, when they're looking for a kidney for Hugh, there's 103 hospitals in that pool. You know, they didn't have to compromise at all on the paired exchange because there was none. It was 1 kidney going out and one kidney coming in the pool. So they can typically make a better match using the voucher than any other method.
Okay. Let's talk about the idea of the organ trail. How did you and your wife come up with this idea, combining your level of cycling with increasing awareness of kidney disease and the need for more kidney donors?
It was like I said earlier, I was already thinking about doing some biking down the Mississippi on all these trips to Louisiana we'd have to take. So the bike ride itself was kind of coming along. And then when I decided to make it an awareness ride is where we got serious. And I asked some of my mountain biking friends, you know, hey, I got to come up with a name. And I didn't come up with it. It was one of my mountain biking friends from Kansas City, Missouri, actually. He said, we'll call it the Oregon Trail. And I thought, well, that sounds pretty good. So the guy's name is Kevin Neerman, and I'm going to give him some credit. So he came up with the name, and we've done this thing before. I mentioned earlier that our middle son is in the Air Force. He was stationed in Washington, D.C. a few years ago. And one of the last trips we took from Wisconsin to Washington, D.C. to see him, my wife dropped me off in Pittsburgh, and I rode my bike from Pittsburgh to Washington, D.C. Took like 4 days, I can't remember. So I've done this stuff before. So the bike ride itself was pretty easy part of it for me. But I understood right away that if I could ride my bike with 1 kidney and do all this on 1 kidney, because I had concerns myself, thinking, am I going to be able to go back and do what I did before on 1 kidney? And I had concerns. I had to learn that I could. The kidney athletes, Tracy Hulick I got in touch with her pretty early in the process. So the ride, the bike ride itself is about demonstrating that you can donate a kidney and go back to a normal lifestyle, if you call what I do normal. But it piques the interest. It piques the interest of the media, and I think it gives people an idea that, hey, I can donate a kidney and live a normal life afterwards. So it takes away one barrier. Again, we're talking about taking away barriers from donation. So it really serves a purpose that way.
Okay. Now, you've done 4 of these Oregon Trail rides starting in 2021 by my notes. Let's talk about some of the highlights of some of the cool stops that you have made. Let's start with the first bike ride in 2021, a 15-mile ride from Madison to Natchitoches, Louisiana. What was that all about?
Yeah, 1,500 miles from Madison to Natchitoches. So I donated in September of 2020, and about 10 days before my surgery, I rode my bicycle from my house to Madison on 2 kidneys. And then I had my surgery September 30th of 2020. And then the spring of 2021, 7 months after my surgery, we started from Madison, where I left off, and went to Hugh's house, basically. So we had some, it was our first long ride, and I had some friends of mine in the Midwest that rode with me, and I didn't know, really what we were doing. So the first 4 days and we're on mountain bikes. I don't have a road bike, so I'm doing mountain bikes. I'm looking for non-paved surfaces. I like dirt. I like gravel. And so we're not doing these, 20-mile-an-hour rides. We're doing 13 miles an hour or something like that. So the first 4 days, we averaged 100 miles every day. The first 3 days were over 100 miles. The 4th day was like 95. So the first 4 days, we did a little over 400 miles in the first 4 days. So we were really putting it out. We were really working hard. And we took 3 days off on that whole ride. I had different friends joining me in different parts of the ride. I've got some friends in St. Louis. We had an event in St. Louis. St. Louis University had a huge, nice event for us. And so these events started to I reached out and I thought, well, what's the best way to get media attention is maybe get some of these transplant hospitals involved. They've got their own press, PR departments. They've got local media. So I started to contact them as well. And then a really good friend of mine that I went to school with ever since first grade, his name was Mark Bruner. He had his own PR business. So he's a good friend of mine. I was telling him about donating a kidney. I said, I want to do this ride. How can I create awareness? So he had knowledge of media. So he put together a press release, and he was putting that out every day for me. And we started to get interviews. We got maybe 30 or 40 interviews on that first ride from Madison to Louisiana. And the second ride was going to be from Wisconsin to New York, because that's where my kidney went. And we did it backwards because it just worked out that way. And it was 1,600 miles, and I think we had over 70 or 75 interviews. We were doing 2 or 3 interviews a day, podcasts, TV, radio, newspapers. So we saw the potential. I think we were in Mystic, Connecticut when I was a news reporter came out. And what we found out was that we send a press release to everybody on a TV station or newspaper website. We were sending out 20 or 30 emails for every TV station, because we found out that if the weatherman or the janitor, maybe there's a connection to kidney disease, they'll push that story. And we were in Mystic. We did an interview with a reporter, and he told me that that day there was probably going to be 30,000 people that are going to watch this TV interview, because that's their viewing audience up there. And come to find out, his father was a transplant surgeon. He told me that after the interview. And we've run into many people that have come out to interview us that have some connection to kidney disease. We just did one a little over a week ago in Wisconsin. A local reporter came out, TV reporter, and she told me after the interview that her father was on dialysis. So she said the story really was close to her. So we found out that there's so many people out there that are close to this problem, this issue. And so weird stories, coming back from New York, a friend of mine from Pittsburgh had joined me, and we were riding in Poughkeepsie, New York, going across the Hudson River. And a local got wind of our ride, and he wanted to ride with us. And he wasn't involved in the kidney community, but he had a prosthesis leg. He was a bike rider, but he had a prosthetic leg, and he was riding a bike with us. And we went to cross a highway, and somehow he hit a pothole or something, and he tipped over. He fell over. And I was already crossed the road. It was a 4-lane highway, 2 lanes each way. And I was already crossed. But my friend from Pittsburgh and him were riding next to each other, and he fell down and his leg came off. And so my buddy was like standing there looking at him. So it was the guy laying in the highway, and a few feet away was his prosthetic leg, and a few feet away further was his bicycle laying there. And my buddy Jeff said, I don't know which one to go after first. and the guy said, hey, just get my bike and go to the curb. He said, I'll crawl to the curb with my legs. So here I am. I'm on the other side of the street, and I'm watching these guys. Traffic is stopped. Traffic's going around them. And Jeff's got 2 bikes, one bike, his bike, and the other guy's bike. And the other guy's crawling, literally crawling across the highway, dragging his prosthetic leg.
Oh, God.
So that was one story. It wasn't funny at the time, but afterwards, everything worked out. We had a really good laugh over that. But we've had strange situations. I've had people like follow me, and I'm wondering what they're doing. This was in Lower Michigan, and it was a kind of a truck following me, and I knew there was a truck because I'd seen them at the stop sign, and they weren't coming by me. It's like, what's going on here, And we had done an interview the night before. A TV station had come to where we were staying. They did an interview. The next morning was a Sunday morning, and this truck wasn't coming around. And pretty soon I could hear it coming, and it was going really slow. And I thought, oh boy, what's going to happen, And they got next to me. I didn't want to look back or anything, I didn't want them to know that I was nervous or anything. So they come up next to me, and I saw out of the corner of my eye, the window starts rolling down. I thought, oh my God, what are you gonna do? Throw a cabbage at me or something? And I looked over there, and the woman goes, "We saw you on TV last night." So of the TV interview. So yeah, we haven't had any trouble really. I haven't had any issues. No dogs to speak of. No traffic issues. Again, because I'm on a mountain bike, I'm going off on the weird roads. All the way down to Mississippi, I rode as much as I could on the levee roads. We were up on the levee, and some of it was just cow pasture. You can see some video in some of our the USA Today video. We're chasing cows off the trail as they're going. So most of my riding, of course, in town, Southern California was fantastic because there's so many bike lanes and bike routes. We didn't have any issue with traffic. Most of the big cities have bike routes, bike paths. So I just get on those, and it's actually very safe. And Phoenix, I was riding bike paths that follow the irrigation canals through town, through the city of Phoenix. So we've come into construction zones, and because I got a mountain bike, I can go through construction zones easier than a car can, up and down gravel and dirt, manhole covers, and whatever it takes. I just go right around it. So,
okay, our friend Lisa Thompson is writing in the comments, and she wants to say hello, and she wants me to mention that you're going to be speaking at Kidney Stories Toastmaster on the 5th of March. So just to let everybody know, you can tune in with Lisa and check out Mark, what he has to say on the 5th. I have you taken a ride at some point from Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts to your home in Plover, Wisconsin. What was that ride all about?
Well, that was some of the stories I just talked about. We started Martha's Vineyard, and we had an event right on Martha's Vineyard at a dialysis center. And what I do along these rides is I try to invite people that need a kidney, that are looking for a kidney, to actually join me at these media events. And we try to get their story out personally. Because I know there's some magic that can happen when somebody tells their story, because it happened with me. I just randomly met a guy and he told me he needed a kidney. And I said, yeah, I'll do this. So we try to get as many people as we can along our route that we can make contact with, that want to join us. Lisa joined me at some events. She put together some events in New York when we were coming through New York. And, we came through. I've never been to New York City. The first time I was on New York City was on my bike ride, and came through New York City on the bike, through Times Square, Central Park. We hit a bike path, went all the way to Albany on the bike path. Weren't even on the roads at all. At Albany, we turned west all the way to Niagara Falls. We followed the canal path. What's that?
Okay. I have a note, and this makes me think that you're a tough guy. You did a ride in 2022, a 135-mile competition in the 2022 Arrowhead Ultra, which you say is one of the most difficult marathons held, because it's held in the middle of winter in, of all places, northern Minnesota. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, about 12 years ago, I got involved in these winter ultra races. And there's a number of them in the Midwest. This Arrowhead 135 is considered one of the toughest ultras because, again, of the temperatures. I've ridden one of the races I did. It was minus 30 when we started the race. They closed down the schools in International Falls, and a bunch of us took off on bike and skis and on foot. So it can be very cold. It can be very warm. One year I did it on skis. I cross-country skied 135 miles, and it snowed about 6-8 inches during the race. So we're plowing through snow, and it's brutal. I mean, you gotta really you gotta dress right. You've got to train. You've got to be able to eat right. There's a category in that race where it's unsupported, where you cannot go into any of the checkpoints. You cannot get any water at the checkpoints. You cannot get any food. You have to be totally self-supported. And I did that on bike a few years ago as well. So I kind of retired from it. But then when I donated my kidney, I wanted to really prove that you could go back to what you were doing. So the winter of 2022, I did 2 races that winter. The Arrowhead 135, and then there's another race called the Tuscobia 160. That's 160 miles in Wisconsin. I did them both on one kidney, so I really wanted to demonstrate that you could do it. The Tuscobia, I cheated a little bit. I went into a building when I really couldn't, so I really didn't officially finish the race, because I actually did do the miles, although it wasn't an official finish. But I did want to do the miles. So I did it. But just want to make that clear. But okay. Yeah, so I wanted to prove that you could really go back to what you're doing with one kidney.
Wow. And you mentioned being in California. You have a ride 1,350 miles from San Diego to Lubbock. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? That was in 2022.
That was last
year.
Yep, last year at this time. See, Hughes Kidney came from Southern California, so I wanted to bike the route of Hughes Kidney from California to Louisiana. So again, I looked at the route. I like to do this. I like to create the routes, and Lubbock was kind of halfway, miles-wise. So we split the ride in half. We started in San Diego, went up to Los Angeles. We did media events at UC Irvine, at USC, at UCLA. We went to the Mayo Clinic in Phoenix. We went to 2 transplant hospitals in Albuquerque. And we had people join us on rides from Phoenix. When we did Phoenix, I had to go from Phoenix, which is it's under 1,000 feet, to Payson, Arizona. So I climbed 4,000 feet in one day on the mountain bike. The next day I climbed about 3,000 feet. So in 2 days I climbed over the Rocky Mountains, got on top. Again, it's just to demonstrate that you can go back to what you're doing and to prove that you can literally donate a kidney, save someone's life, and go back to whatever you're doing. And the media and people enjoy the idea of a bike ride. So that's where we get the media attention. So it kind of serves two purposes.
Okay. The current ride, the 5th ride, I understand that's supposed to start March 9th, 2023 in Lubbock on World Kidney Day, and you're going to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, arriving there approximately April 11th. You sent me a list of all these places you're going to stop. What are the most important stops on your ride that's coming up?
Well, I guess they're all important. Because we've learned so much from the other rides, we've kind of got a pretty good MO on how to do this. So I started last October probably talking to Donate Life Texas. There's 3 OPOs in Texas, organ procurement organizations, talked with them. I started reaching out to transplant hospitals along my route to see if they'd be interested in joining me in some kind of media event when I rode through town. So I think we've got close to 24 different scheduled stops. And that is also in addition to our regular, press release that we send out every day. And so one thing I did differently on this ride and what we've learned is, like, when we come into Dallas, I'll come into Dallas on the afternoon, then we'll take the next day off and we'll leave the morning of the 3rd day. That gives us a whole day to be in Dallas, to do as much media as possible. We've had surgeons ride with me. I've had directors of transplant programs ride with me. When we were in New York, for example, Syracuse University, the head of their liver transplant department rode 20 miles with me. And so a lot of these people like to ride bikes, so they'll ride with me. So every time we get into a big city, we take that day off to see if we can do these events, because then again, it gives more exposure. With social media, we don't have to rely on regular TV or newspapers, although we try to get that as much as possible. But we get just as much exposure with social media quite a bit of times. So one of the things I did different too is, about 10 years ago, I was one of the featured racers in this Arrowhead 135, and they made a documentary film on the race. And I know what kind of exposure that can get. You can get to a whole nother group of people, if you will. So at the end of the ride last year, I contacted Texas Tech University and their journalism department, found my way through that, and found a guy named Jared Foster, who is a professor there. And one of his graduate students is going to join me. He's worked it out with his instructor and with Texas Tech, and he's going to be with me every day of the ride, starting in Lubbock to Baton Rouge. He's going to document the whole ride, and it's not about the ride. We're going to be documenting the kidney portion of this, and we're going to highlight the people we meet, the people that need a kidney, the donors, the transplant hospitals, the people that are all part of that. And we're going to try and put together a documentary film so we can take it to different film festivals, try to penetrate even further the urgent need and how easy it is to become a donor and what happens after you donate. So we're going to try and get that made. On the other end, we've got LSU involved, Louisiana State University. We've got some students there that are helping us, going to put together an ending event at LSU campus. They're also going to help with social media and different things like that. So I've got 2 universities that are going to be part of this. This is brand new. We haven't done this before. Yeah, so we got a lot of moving parts with this ride this time. So it's going to be pretty interesting.
Wow. So people that want to keep up with you, they can get full details on your Oregon Trail website and from your Facebook page, and those links are streaming across the broadcast as we're speaking. Let me ask you something, Mark. Do you do any fundraising as a result of this, or are you trying to raise money to help you out with costs, or how does that work?
Well, one of the big things we try to do is we try to stay with people along the route. We don't want to. You can't buy a kidney. So my wife and I didn't want to try to raise money so I could go ride a bike. We didn't like the idea of that. So we tried to stay away from the whole money thing. Of course, there's money involved, and I've got some organizations that are helping us do that. But we really are conscious of trying to keep our costs down so those organizations can use that money in other ways. So we found out one of the things that we did, and we did the first 3 rides during the middle of COVID, but we like staying with people. So if people can go to my route, and we try to stay with people along the way. So if somebody wants to host my wife and I, we're more than excited to entertain that possibility. We're staying with people. We've stayed with strangers. We love it. It's all people in the kidney community usually. I've done some remote Toastmasters talks and Rotary clubs in Texas, and those have been good. The Rotary Club in Lubbock has been fantastic. We're staying with people in the Rotary Club in Lubbock. Actually, it's a woman and her husband that used to live in Wisconsin, and they moved to Lubbock. And she opened up her house to us. We're going to be staying with them. They're not even going to be there. They're just going to say, "Here's the keys." We have never met these people.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So this is another whole aspect of the ride that's just fantastic. And I did a presentation at the Rotary meeting on Zoom a month or 2 ago. So we're also spreading the word that way. We're trying to educate people through those methods. So we're kind of jabbing at a lot of different things. But if somebody wants to help us, if you're not on the route, if you want to support us, the best way to do that is maybe put us up in a hotel for a night or something like that. My wife and I. That would be great. I do have a PayPal thing on my website, but it all takes money, but there's other ways that you can help us, and this is one way that can.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about some of the awards that you've won for your kidney advocacy work. Talk to us about the 2021 USA Today Humankind Triumph of the Year Award. And that's scrolling across the screen with the link to the YouTube video as we speak.
Well, that really started with the National Kidney Donation Organization, NKDO. Lisa Emmett is one of the staff members there, and her husband needed a kidney a few years ago, and Lisa wasn't physically able to donate, but she's an unbelievable advocate. And she got connected with USA Today Humankind on her story. So when I started the Oregon Trail, she put me in touch with USA Today Humankind, and they thought that my story had some interest. So they put together some footage and put together a video. And then 2021 was the first year that USA Today decided to have the best of. So they had 11 different categories, I think, 11 or 12. And they had different categories. And I fell into the category of Triumph of the Year. And the first competition, if you will, is just becoming one of their choices for a category. And I don't know, they picked that. So I was up against another person who had a great, and then it came down to voting. So people would log in and vote. And we ended up getting the most votes for that category. So we used it. Jenna Bush was the presenter of that. And we're trying to get her attention for Texas because she's in Texas. So yeah. I've always wanted to mountain bike with her father, former President George Bush, because I know he's got mountain bike trails and he takes wounded warriors out on these trails he has for decades. And I thought, hey, maybe I can somehow get his attention or get Jenna's attention. So that's why I mentioned it right now. We're coming right through their area. We'd love to be able to do that. And so Yeah, so that's how the award came about, and there was some monetary benefit to that, but we donated it to Restoring Hope Transplant House, which is a private house in Madison that puts people up that are having surgery or transplant surgery in Madison. Families can stay there at a very low rate, and they survive on benefits or donations. So again, if somebody wants to donate, we direct people to Restoring Hope Transplant House in Madison.
Okay, Lisa's saying thank you for speaking about that and giving her credit. I want to talk to you now about your wife, because some people don't realize, I think, that she's also been a voucher donator in the family. That on January 10th of this year, she did a voucher donation that was aimed at a young man from Minnesota, Cooper Thompson, a 2-year-old boy who's been on dialysis since he was 2. He's had 10 surgeries. He has a bone disease that's causing leg fractures. And he's scheduled to receive his kidney on March 3rd, 2023. Talk to us a little bit about what's going on with our buddy Cooper Thompson.
Well, yeah, it's a really great story. It started out with Lynn. When I wanted to donate for Hugh, I went in July of 2020 for my evaluation in Madison. Once I learned about the voucher program, Lynn went in with me and was there for my evaluation. So she got to sit through everything that I went through to be evaluated. The talks with the surgeons, the social workers, everybody. At the end of the day, my decision to donate to Hugh was a really emotional, top of the, just a flash, lightning strike. I'll give you one of my kidneys. So Lynn, at the end of that day, was very data-driven, very analytical. And at the end of the day, she goes, I don't know why I'm not doing this too. So her path started in July of 2020. There were some COVID hiccups that caused some delays, and she was actually on the registry in November of 2020, but it took until December 10th of this year before it actually happened for Lynn. She had 2 major COVID delays, and we have been working with a lot of people. It was tough. How do you choose, And we did enough.
Mark, are you there? Oh boy, you're kind of frozen, Mark. You might have to log off and log back on. Oh, are you all right? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm good now.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. Go ahead. You were talking about Lynn?
Yeah, so eventually one of the guys that rode with me initially, he used to be the race director of the Arrowhead. I've known him for years, a good friend of mine. He rode with me the first 3 or 4 days of my first ride. He had sent us a random Facebook post. A woman that he worked with, her grandson is Cooper. And Dave sent us that. And when Lynn started to look about, where her voucher could go, she ended up deciding to give it to Cooper. And again, he's 2 years old. He's been on dialysis since he's 8 months old. And yeah, his surgery's coming up. So that could be very, very, very exciting.
Okay. Hang on one second. I want to show the folks some pictures. This is you and your wife the day that she donated.
Yes.
Nice flowers there. And just so people get a perspective on the recipient, there's Cooper, who's sitting there waiting for his new kidney in March.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Just so people understand, I mean, we're really talking about a toddler there. So that's pretty cool. We're in the home stretch here, Mark. Before we conclude the broadcast for the evening, is there any statement that you would like to make to our audience? Is there anything that you want to make sure that we get out in front of people? Or did I forget something?
No, I think you covered
Anything you would like to say?
I think you covered it real well, Jim. I mean, I got long-winded a few times, but I think the best thing that we tell people is that there is a need, and you never know until you get evaluated, and everybody's timing is different for this. My sister-in-law had donated 12 years before I met Hugh, and I have to admit that I never had one curious thought in my mind until I met Hugh. But it's a personal decision. We don't take that lightly. Everybody's got to make their own decision on this. But I think the most curious thing is, I know for me personally, is can I even do this? I remember Hugh calling me when I read that one out of 750 people are born with one kidney. And Hugh was calling me like every day. And I said, Hugh, I don't even know if I have 2 kidneys yet, But I think what I'm trying to say is that if anybody has any curiosity about this, go ahead and get evaluated. Why not? Why not see if you can do it? And then after that, that's when the decision has to be made, whether you want to or not. You don't even know if you can. So if there's anybody that's kind of on the fence, go ahead and get evaluated. That can't hurt. It's probably going to be the best physical you'll ever get. So that's one good thing.
Boy, that's for sure. Okay.
And, in closing, for me, I think I really stress the voucher program as a donor, and my wife too. What made it so easy for us to be able to donate. It almost, that's the best thing about that, is that it's so easy for the donor. And if it's easy, it's more people are going to donate, I think.
Okay. I appreciate you coming on with us tonight. It sounds like you have such a busy schedule. I'm glad we were able to get it together. And I want to thank our friend Lisa Thompson for making the referral. What a terrific story this is. What a great broadcast. And I thank you so much for taking time to speak with us, for raising awareness and talking about the need for kidney donation. Is, as you pointed out, there's 100,000 people on the list. They convert that into 20,000 transplants a year. 13 people die on that list every year, including a couple of friends of mine, by the way, while they're waiting. And so, if you have any inclination to donate at all, please consider testing. Go to your nearest transplant center in your state, and they're looking for people to donate. We don't have enough donors, and we definitely need more. And I'd like to thank you for bringing that to our attention. I have some announcements to make about our upcoming broadcasts, and I'm going to let you go. But Mark, I appreciate so much you're taking time when you're so darn busy to talk to us about your adventures. And man, what a cool kidney story this is.
Well, thanks, Jim. Yes, I appreciate the opportunity. If anybody's interested, I'd highly recommend go to NKR or NKDO, go online and fill out that registration. They have a little questionnaire for you. I think it's very critical to try to get registered with one of those 2 organizations, because I know personally, for my wife and I, that they will follow up with you very promptly, and I highly recommend that. Okay.
You have a good night, Mark. You say hello to Lynn for me, okay?
You bet. Thank you.
All right. That's our broadcast for tonight. Let's talk a little bit about upcoming broadcast. Next Friday, I'm going to be in Washington, D.C. with the National Kidney Foundation, so no broadcast next week. On the 10th of March, Mark Miller is going to come on with us. Mark, he's been on Facebook for years. He's a kidney advocate. He's been having some health difficulties lately. We want to talk to him about that, see how he and Ariel are doing. On the 17th of March, Lisa Sampson's coming on with us. Lisa wrote a book about her experiences with kidney disease and becoming a kidney advocate. She's very, very active, and you know, you want to check out the broadcast with Lisa, and you know, maybe you'll even go out and buy a book or two. Our good friend Bobby Reed, extraordinary kidney advocate, on the 31st of March is going to come on with us. We're going to talk about her advocacy work, and in particular, we're going to talk about her son, Alex. If you remember, Alex was on dialysis, had a transplant. Now he's back on dialysis again. So we want to get the word out so we can help Alex try to find a donor. All around great kidney advocate and terrific person, Elaine Perlman, is on the broadcast on the 7th of April. Can't wait for that one. Got all kinds of ground to cover there. Hope I can do it in an hour. On the 12th of April, Dr. Lindsay Johan is on the broadcast. She has a very interesting perspective on the human relationship between the person that's being transplanted and the person that's assisting with that, or the group that's assisting with that. Has some interesting ideas about that. On the 21st of April, Stephanie Lynn Moser is going to be on the broadcast. Steph has PKD and Gitterman's disease at the same time. She's having a rough time right at the moment. She wants to do this broadcast before she can't do it. So I promised her we'd get it done in April. So come hell or high water, April 21 is Stephanie's day. On the 12th of May, Maria Gajava is on the broadcast. I know I've mispronounced that last name. She's an award winner with the National Kidney Foundation. We want to talk to her about her advocacy work, and also about the award that she's won with the NKF. On the 26th of May, we're going to be talking to Quentin Johnson, or we call him Q. He's a part of the Kidney Solutions support group. He's a diabetic. He wants to come on and talk about his need for a kidney. He's got some very interesting perspective on illness. On June 2nd, we have a broadcast with Dr. Jonathan Barrett. He's going to be talking to us about IgA. So we're going to all learn a little something about that. That'll be the first time that we've ever had anybody on that spoke on that issue. Tentatively scheduled on the 9th of June, Robert Chelsea is going to be on the broadcast. Robert's the guy that had the very first face transplant. So we want to talk to him about his experiences with that, and how he's doing. And he's got a little social media following, just like our friend Scott. So we want to talk about his experiences with that. So we got a lot of things coming up. I'm working on trying to get some doctors for you so we can have a few experts on, and you know, watch this space, because we have interesting things going on here. So I wish everybody well, and I thank you for watching tonight. You have a good evening, and we will talk again soon. And let's see if I can get the placard up I'm supposed to have. There it is. All right. Thank you for joining us today, and we will talk to you next time. All right. You all have a good night.